Good morning. Today we'll start with heat exchangers. Heat exchangers are devices that facilitate exchange of heat between two fluids that are at different temperature while keeping them from mixing with each other. Heat exchangers are commonly used in practice in wide range of applications from heating air conditioning system in a household to chemical processing and power production in large plants. Heat exchanger differs from mixing chambers in that they do not allow two fluids to mix. Heat transfer in heat exchanger usually involves convection in each fluid and conduction through the wall separating two fluids. In analysis of heat exchanger, it is convenient to work with overall heat transfer coefficient U. In the analysis of a heat exchanger, it is usually convenient to work with logarithm mean temperature difference LMTD, which is an equivalent mean temperature difference between the two fluids for the entire heat exchanger. We also introduce correction factor F to account for the deviation of mean temperature difference from LMTD in complex configuration. Then we introduce NTD number method, which enables us to analyze heat exchanger when the outlet temperature of the fluids are not known. Finally, we discuss the selection of heat exchangers. Types of heat exchangers. Different heat transfer applications require different types of hardware and different configuration of heat transfer requirement. The attempt to match the heat transfer hardware to the heat transfer requirement, which within the specified constraints has resulted in numerous types of innovative exchanger designs. One of the most common is double pipe heat exchanger. One fluid in double pipe heat exchanger flows through the smaller pipe, while the other fluid flows through the annular space between the two pipes. So in this case, one fluid is flowing in inner pipe, other is flowing into the annular space between these two pipes, this space. So it can be of counter flow, it can be parallel flow. So two fluids are flowing parallel. So this is the temperature distribution and this is counter flow. Two fluids are flowing opposite in direction. So this is the temperature of the hot fluid at inlet, this is temperature of the cold fluid at inlet. So they are in counter flow direction. Whereas in this case, this is temperature of inlet fluid, hot fluid, this is temperature of inlet cold fluid, and temperature difference is maximum. As the fluid go along the tube in the parallel direction, the temperature difference will decrease and the exit temperature difference is minimum. While in this counter case, you can say temperature difference is maintained almost parallel or constant. Another type of heat exchanger which is specially designed to realize large heat transfer surface area per unit volume is compact heat exchanger. The ratio of heat transfer surface area of a heat exchanger to its volume is called area density beta, means surface area of heat exchanger to the total volume of heat exchanger is called beta. So if beta is greater than 700 meter per square per meter cube, it is classified as being compact. Examples of compact heat exchanger are car radiators in which beta is equal to 1000 meter square per meter cube, glass ceramic gas turbine heat exchanger in beta is 6000, and we can take example of human lung in which beta is equal to 20,000 meter square per meter cube. Compact heat exchangers enable us to achieve high heat transfer rate between two fluids in a small volume. Large surface area in a compact heat exchanger is obtained by attaching closely thin plate or corrugate fins to the wall separating the two fluids. Compact heat exchangers are commonly used in gas to gas and gas to liquid application because the heat transfer in case of gas is less, so we need more surface area. In car radiator, which is a water to air compact heat exchanger, for example, it is no surprise that fins are attached to the air side of the tube. In compact heat exchanger, the two fluids usually move perpendicular to each other and such flow configuration is called cross flow. The cross flow is further classified as unmixed and mixed flow. So there are two classifications. You can see this is both fluids unmixed, this is one fluid mixed, one fluid unmixed. So in this case, these are parallel plates are attached so that the fluid won't mix. The cross flow is said to be unmixed since the plate fins force the fluid to flow through a particular interfin spacing and prevent it from moving into the transfer direction. So these plates prevent the fluid flowing into the direction of this tube. The fluid flows only in transfer direction. The cross flow is said to be mixed since the fluid now is free to move in the transfer direction. So in this case, there are no parallel plates. These plates are missing. So the fluid can move in transfer direction also. So this is cross flow mixed. but you can see tube flow is unmixed. You can see the tubes are separated, so the fluid within the tube will mix it with each other. But this fluid which is moving perpendicular to this tube, the second fluid can mix. The most commonly used tube exchanger is shell and tube heat exchanger. So this is your one shell pass and one tube pass. These are baffles. So this is your shell inlet. This is your fluid passage from this white space, and this will shell outlet, and this is your tube inlet. The fluid will enter into tube from this side, but before inlet it will be stored in the space that is front end header, and then it will go to the tube outlet that is rear end header. The most common type of exchanger in industrial application is shell and tube heat exchanger. Shell and tube heat exchanger contain a large number of tubes, sometimes several hundred, packed in a shell with their axis parallel to that of shell. So these are tubes which are with the parallel to the shell axis. So baffles are commonly placed in the shell to force the shell side fluid to flow across the shell to enhance heat transfer and to maintain uniform spacing between tubes. So now the fluid will force to flow in the cross direction with the help of these baffles. Despite their widespread use, shell and tube exchangers are not suitable for use in automotive and aircraft applications because of their relatively large size and weight. Note that the tube in shell and tube exchanger open to some large flow areas called headers. So these are called headers, where tube will open to large flow area. So this is one shell pass and one tube pass and two tube pass. So you can see this is your shell. This is fluid will come from this is shell side fluid, gray area, and this will go out. So this is one shell pass, while tube has in from this side, it will take U-turn, it is going out, so it is two pass. You can take this example here. Here shell is divided into by this plate. Now fluid will go, shell side fluid will go come from this side, it will go in this side, and then it will go like this, one U-turn, while tube side fluid here had one U-turn and then second U-turn. So tube side fluid has total 4 pass. So shell and tube exchanger are further classified according to the number of shell and tube passes involved. Heat exchanger in which all tubes make U-turn in the shell, for example, are called one shell pass and two tube pass heat exchanger. This example. Likewise, a heat exchanger that involves two passes in the shell, two passes in shell, and 4 passes in tubes. So this is your 4 passes in tubes, 1, 2, then 3 and 4 is called 2 shell passes and 4 tube pass heat exchanger. An innovative type of heat exchanger that has found widespread use is plate and frame, or just plate heat exchanger, which consists of a series of plates with corrugated flat flow passages. This is shown in this figure. This is your plate and frame liquid to liquid heat exchanger. The hot and cold fluids flow in an alternative passages, and thus each cold fluid stream is surrounded by 2 hot fluid streams, resulting in very effective heat transfer. Also, plate heat exchangers can grow with an increasing demand for heat transfer by simply mounting more plates. They are well suited for liquid to liquid heat exchanger applications, provided that the hot and cold fluid streams are at about same pressure. Another type of heat exchanger that involves the alternate passage of hot and cold fluid streams through the same flow area is called regenerated heat exchanger. Heat exchanger are often given specific names to reflect the specific application for which they are used. For example, a condenser in a heat exchanger in which one of the fluid is cooled and condensed as it flows through the heat exchanger. A boiler is another heat exchanger in which one of the fluid absorbs heat and vaporizes. A space radiator is a heat exchanger that transfers heat from the hot fluid to surrounding space by radiation. The overall heat transfer coefficient. So this is your thermal resistance network associated with the heat transfer in a double pipe heat exchanger. So this is the wall. This is the inner side resistance at this interface, which is convective heat transfer resistance. This is wall resistance, which is conduction heat transfer resistance. This is our wall, and this is your outer surface convective heat transfer resistance, which is this. A typical heat exchanger involves two flowing fluids separated by a solid wall. Heat is first transferred from the hot fluid to the wall by convection, through the wall by conduction, and from the wall to the cold load fluid again by convection. Any radiation effects are usually included in the convection heat transfer coefficients. So here substitute I represent inner wall and O represents outer surface. So this is your inner tube, this is the outer tube. So if heat transfer is from this is your heat transfer is from outer tube to inner tube, in that case we had this surface area of the outer tube, which is A naught is equal to pi d naught L, and for inner tube the surface area is AI is equal to pi di L, and both area must be equal. If there is a thickness is very small, means d naught I is equal to d naught when your tube thickness is very small. Now we know from the conduction that thermal resistance of wall is equal to log d naught by di divided by 2 pi kl. Now these three resistors are in series, so add all these three resistors. That total resistance will be equal to inner resistance per wall resistance plus outer resistance, which is equal to this convective resistance, conduction resistance in the cylinder wall, and your convective resistance at outer wall. In the analysis of heat exchanger, it is convenient to combine all that thermal resistance in the path of the heat flow from the hot fluid to the cold fluid into a single resistance, and to express the rate of heat transfer between the two fluids as we can express is Q is equal to del T by R, whereas is a single resistance. We will write it as UA del T, which is equal to UI AI del T and U naught A naught del T, because heat transfer from the inner surface and outer surface must be same. Whatever heat is transferred from the outer surface, the same heat will be transferred to the inner surface, where U is the overall heat transfer coefficient, this whose unit is watt per meter square degree Celsius, which is identical to unit of ordinary convection heat transfer coefficient H. Now divide these three equations by del T, and so when you divide this equation by del T, you will get this relation here. Now we know this is the resistance, this is also equal to, as mentioned here, so this resistance and this resistance and this must be same. So instead of using this relation in case of heat exchanger, which has three terms, we can use this relation which represent the overall heat transfer resistance. And this U naught is your overall heat transfer coefficient. Perhaps you are wondering why we have two overall heat transfer coefficient, that is UI and U naught for heat exchanger. The reason is that every heat exchanger has two heat transfer surface, inner surface and outer surface, which in general are not equal to each other. If in a special case AI is equal to A naught, then UI is equal to U naught. Means if your AI is equal to A naught, then you can say your inner heat transfer overall heat transfer coefficient is equal to outer overall heat transfer coefficient. Therefore, the overall heat transfer coefficient U of a heat exchanger is meaningless unless the area on which it is based is specified. Now take a special case when your resistance, thermal resistance of tube is negligible, means wall resistance is negligible, and AI is equal to A naught. In that case, if you create these two equations, this equation and this equation, you will get this 1 by U is equal to 1 by HI plus 1 by HO naught. This is your overall heat transfer coefficient, and this is your convective heat transfer coefficient for inner and outer tube. These are determined individually and we had discussed earlier. So you can find overall heat transfer coefficient if you have inner heat transfer coefficient and convective heat transfer coefficient, and you have outer convective heat transfer coefficient. this overall heat transfer coefficient U is dominated by the smaller convective coefficient, since the inverse of a large number is small. So when one of the convection coefficient is much smaller than other, say Hi is much smaller than H0, if this term is smaller, it means this term is much larger as compared to this term, we can neglect it. In that case, your overall heat transfer coefficient is a function of Hi, or it is almost equal to Hi. And we had selected that inner heat transfer coefficient is much less. So it means overall heat transfer coefficient is also less if your one of the value is very less. Therefore, the smaller heat transfer coefficient creates a bottleneck on the path of heat flow and seriously impedes heat transfer. This situation arises frequently when one of the fluids is a gas and the other is a liquid. Liquid heat transfer coefficient is large while gas transfer heat transfer coefficient is less. So in such case, fins are commonly used on the gas side to enhance the product UAS, where AS is the area of surface, finned surface, and thus the heat transfer on that side will increase. Representative value for overall heat transfer coefficient U are given in table. Note that overall heat transfer coefficient range from about 10 watt per meter square degree Celsius for gas to gas heat exchanger and about 10,000 watt per meter square degree Celsius for heat exchanger that involve phase change process. So this is your overall heat transfer coefficient. Between water to water, it is near to 1000 in this range. Water to oil, this. And you can say from steam to heavy fuel, it is less, which is gas to on the gas, because of steam is a form of gas. So this is less. And you can see from water to air, it is also less even with the fins. It is only 30 to 60. You can say this is based on air side surface area and this is based on water or steam side surface area. Now if you use fin, the AS is equal to, when the tube is finned on the one side enhanced heat transfer, the total heat transfer area on the fin surface becomes total area of fin is equal to fin side is equal to area of fin plus area unfinned. So this relation is valid for short fins of high thermal conductivity. We can use this total area in convection resistance relation, which is equal to 1 by HAS, since the fins in this case will be very nearly isothermal. Otherwise, we should determine the effective surface area A from this relation, where this is efficiency of the fin. Fouling factor. The performance of heat exchanger usually deteriorates with the time as a result of accumulation of deposits on heat transfer surface. The layer of deposit represent additional resistance to heat transfer and cause the rate of heat transfer in the heat exchanger to decrease. The net effect of these accumulations on heat transfer is represented by a fouling factor RF, which is a measure of the thermal resistance introduced by fouling. The fouling can be of any type: precipitation of solid deposit on fluid on the heat transfer surface. If you check inner surface of your teapot, it has contained some calcium based deposits, which is in case of hard water. In case of chemical flow, the fouling can be of corrosion type. So another form of fouling which is common in chemical process industry is corrosion, and this is called chemical fouling. In the case of the surfaces are fouled by the accumulation of products of chemical reactions on the surface, this form of fouling can be avoided by coating metal pipes with glass or use of plastic pipes. This is another type of fouling which is on the outer pipes, the deposition of fly ash in case of boiler. This can be removed by proper cleaning of the pipes at regular interval of time. The fouling factor is obviously 0 for new heat exchanger and increases with time as the solid deposits build up on heat exchanger surface. The fouling factor depends on the operating temperature and the velocity of the fluids as well as the length of service. So this fouling factor is represented by RF. These are the values for different types of fluid for fouling factor in meter square per degree Celsius watt. Now in the previous we had found out the overall heat transfer coefficient without fouling, but as your heat exchanger become old, the fouling factor will come into play. Fouling factor increase with increasing temperature and decreasing velocity. So that effect we have to include into the overall heat transfer coefficient. For an unfilled shell and tube heat exchanger, it is expressed as, so R is equal to, in this case, is equal to, this is your inner side conductive heat transfer coefficient. This is your inner side filing, which is RF inner by A area of inner. This is your wall resistance. This is outer side filing of surface and outer surface. This is outer side conductive heat transfer coefficient. So this filing will act as a resistance in the overall heat transfer coefficient or in heat transfer, where AI is equal to pi dIL and A naught is equal to pi d naught are the areas of inner and outer surface, and RFI and RF naught are the fouling factors at those surface. So these values are given in table, most comprehensive tables of fouling factor the Weber handbook. As you would expect, considerable uncertainty exists in these values, and they should be used as a guide in the selection and evaluation of heat exchangers to count for the effects of anticipated fouling on heat transfer. Note that most fouling factors in the table are of the order of 10⁻⁻⁴ meter square per degree Celsius per watt, which is equivalent to the thermal resistance of 0.2 mm thick limestone layer. Therefore, in the absence of any specific data, we can assume the surface to be coated with 0.2 mm of limestone as a starting point to account for the effect of fouling. Overall heat transfer coefficient of a heat exchanger. Hot oil is to be cooled in a double tube counterflow heat exchanger. So this is your double tube counterflow heat exchanger. Hot oil will be cooled with the cold water. The inner diameter of this tube is 2 cm and the inner diameter of outer tube is 3 cm. The mass flow rate is given. The water flow through the tube at the rate of this and oil through the shell at a rate of this, taking the average temperature of water and oil to be 45 and 80 respectively, determine the overall heat transfer coefficient. So average temperature of water oil is given. Correspond to this temperature, these are the properties of water, which is Prandtl, viscosity, conductivity and density, and correspond to 80 degrees Celsius, these are the properties of the oil. Overall heat transfer coefficient is equal to Hi plus H naught. Now we had a assumption that thermal resistance of inner tube is negligible since the tube material is highly conductivity and thickness is negligible. So we haven't included the thermal resistance of the wall. So means we have neglected this thermal resistance R wall. We had used this equation with no thermal resistance of the wall. The hydraulic diameter of circular tube is the diameter of tube itself. So for the inner tube, d hydraulic is equal to diameter of the tube, which is 2.02 meter. We will find mean velocity, which is mass rate, which is given 0.5 divided by density into area of cross section of this tube, which is 1.61 meter per second. Corresponding round number is equal to Vm dH by viscosity is equal to this. Now this is for case of pipe, it is much greater than 4000. Therefore the flow of water is turbulent. So this is, we will assume Nusselt number corresponding to the turbulent flow, which in this case is this, and we know Nusselt number is equal to H dH by K. From here you can find the value of H, which is equal to Nusselt into K by dH. This is your Nusselt number. Put the value in this equation, you will get inner heat transfer coefficient, which is this. Hydraulic diameter of the annular space means this gray area is your annular space. We have to find hydraulic diameter of the outer pipe. So this is outer diameter minus inner diameter is equal to this. Mean velocity is equal to mass flow rate upon density to area. Mass flow rate is already given for the oil. It is 0.8 kg per second. This is annulus area and this is your density of the oil. Mean velocity is equal to this. Reynolds number in this case is equal to 637, which is much less than 4000. So flow is laminar. And from this table, for ratio of inner tube to outer tube, corresponding inner and outer Nusselt number is given. Because heat transfer is in the inner side of the tube, it is not at the outer side of the tube. So we will take this Nusselt number of inner. Now di by d naught in this case is 0.67, which lies in this range. By interpolation, you can take this value and this value. By interpolation, we get Nusselt number is equal to 5.45. Now you can find overall heat transfer coefficient. If you had H naught is this. We had Nusselt number K dH. This is overall heat transfer coefficient, which in this case is this 74.5 watt meter square degree Celsius. So it is clearly visible that H naught is 75 while HI is 7663. So it means HI is much greater than H0. H0 is very small. This confirms our earlier statement that the overall heat transfer coefficient in a heat exchanger is dominated by the smaller heat transfer coefficient when the difference between two values is large. To improve the overall heat transfer coefficient and thus the heat transfer in this exchanger, we must use some enhanced technique on the oil side, such as fin surface. So this is the oil side, so we have to use some fin surface on the oil side to enhance the heat transfer. Analysis of heat exchangers. Heat exchangers commonly used in practice, and an engineer often finds himself in a position or situation to select a heat exchanger that will achieve a specified temperature change in a fluid stream of known mass rate, or to predict the outlet temperature of the hot and cold fluid stream in a specified heat exchanger. We will discuss, there are two methods, that is logarithm mean temperature difference LMTD, and second is effective NTU method for the analysis of heat exchanger. So heat exchanger usually operate for long periods of time with no change in their operating condition, means steady flow devices. As such, the mass rate of the each fluid remains constant, and the fluid properties such as temperature and velocity at inlet outlet remain constant. Kinetic energy, potential energy change can be neglected. Specific fluid in general changes with temperature, but we can consider it within range at a constant, where we have to also assume axial heat conduction along the tube is usually insignificant and can be considered negligible. Finally, the outer surface fluid exchanger is assumed to be perfectly insulated so that there is no heat loss to the surrounding medium and the heat transfer occurs between two fluids only. The idealizations stated above are closely approximated in practice, and they greatly simplify the analysis of heat exchanger with little sacrifice of accuracy. Therefore, they are commonly used. Under these assumptions, the first law of thermodynamics requires that rate of heat transfer from hot fluid must be equal to rate of heat transfer from cold fluid. Means this is your rate of heat transfer from the cold fluid, that is mCp Tc out minus T in, and this is rate of heat transfer for the hot fluid, which is equal to Q is equal to mCp Th in minus Th out. So this is your cold fluid inlet, this is cold fluid outlet temperature, this is your hot fluid inlet temperature, this is hot fluid outlet temperature. So MC and MH are mass flow rates, Cp and Cph are specific rate of cold and hot fluid, where Tc out is the cold fluid outlet temperature and Th is the hot fluid outlet temperature, and respectively this. So note that the heat transfer Q is taken to be positive quantity, and definitely its direction is understood to be from the hot fluid to the cold fluid. In heat exchanger analysis, it is often convenient to combine the product of mass rate and specific heat of a fluid into a single quantity. This quantity is called heat capacity rate. Means if you take this quantity, it is called capacity rate, heat capacity rate. This quantity is called heat capacity rate. We will represent it with the Ch and Cc. This is heat capacity of hot fluid, this is heat capacity of cold fluid. The heat capacity rate of a fluid stream represents the rate of heat transfer needed to change the temperature of a fluid stream by 1 degree Celsius as it flows through the heat exchanger. Note that in a heat exchanger, the fluid with a large heat capacity rate will experience a small temperature change, and the fluid with a small heat capacity rate will experience a large temperature change. Therefore, doubling the mass rate of a fluid while leaving everything else unchanged will halve the temperature change of the fluid. You can replace this value of Ch and Cc in this equation. We will get this equation here. This is in terms of heat capacity rate. Now Q is a product of heat capacity rate and temperature difference. So Q is same because whatever heat is lost by the hot fluid will be gained by the cold fluid. So if Q is same, the two equations will become equal. Now check carefully, that is the heat transfer rate in heat exchanger is equal to the heat capacity rate of either fluid multiplied by the temperature change of that fluid. Note that the only time the temperature rise of fluid, cold fluid, is equal to the temperature drop of hot fluid is when heat capacity rates of the two fluids are equal. Means if heat capacities of those two fluids are equal, the change in temperature of cold fluid must be equal to change in temperature of hot fluid. Two special types of heat exchanger commonly used in practice are condensers and boilers. One of the fluid in condenser or boiler undergoes a phase change process, and the rate of heat transfer in this case is equal to mHfg. This is condensing fluid, and this is cold fluid which is used to take the heat from the condensive fluid. During condensation, this much amount of heat is released by this fluid, but you can see temperature of this condensive fluid won't decrease, it remains constant. So during phase change, this is a phase change process, temperature remains constant. Second is during boiling. So this is a hot fluid which is transferring heat to the fluid. It is boiling, means its phase is changing, but its temperature won't change. An ordinary fluid absorbs or releases a large amount of heat essentially at constant temperature during a phase change process as shown in figure. The heat capacity rate of fluid during a phase change process must approach infinity since the temperature change is practically zero. So see this equation. So if temperature change of one of fluid is zero, like this is zero, and if this is zero, it means this should go infinity, so that the product of these two will give a finite value. That is, if delta is 0 during a process, in this case, then your heat capacity rate MCP should tend to infinity, so that the heat transfer rate Q, which is equal to m dot Cp into delta T, is a finite quantity. Therefore, in heat exchanger analysis, a condensive or boiling fluid is conveniently modeled as a fluid whose heat capacity rate is infinity. So this is your heat capacity rate, which is this, and it means this is infinity. This should be infinity. The rate of heat transfer in a heat exchanger can be expressed in analogous manner to Newton's law of cooling, which is Q is equal to UAS delta M, where U is overall heat transfer coefficient, A is the heat transfer area, and delta M is the appropriate average temperature difference between two fluids. But there is a problem with this equation, which is overall heat transfer coefficient and delta M. While surface area of the heat exchanger is fixed, the overall heat transfer coefficient U and the temperature difference delta T between the hot and cold fluid in general are not constant and vary along the heat exchanger. So the average value of overall heat transfer coefficient can be determined as described in the preceding section by using average convection coefficient for each fluid. And it turns out that appropriate form of mean temperature difference between two fluids is logarithmic in nature, and it can be calculated below. The log mean temperature difference method. So we know heat transfer is equal to UAS delta M, where delta Tm is mean temperature difference. In order to develop a relation for equivalent average temperature difference between two fluids, consider a parallel flow double pipe heat exchanger as shown in figure. So this is a parallel flow heat exchanger. Hot fluid inlet temperature. This is TH hot out. This is TC cold in fluid. This is TC cold fluid out. Take a small element with the DAS surface area, this element. This is temperature versus along the length. This is the temperature profile. This is delta T1 is the temperature difference at inlet. So delta T1 is equal to TH in minus TC in, and delta T out is equal to TH out minus TC out. So this is at the outlet temperature difference. Note that the temperature difference delta T between hot and cold fluid is large at the inlet of heat exchanger but decrease exponentially towards the outlet. As you would expect, the temperature of hot fluid decrease and the temperature of cold fluid increase along the heat exchanger. But the temperature of cold fluid can never exceed the hot fluid no matter how long the heat exchanger is. Means this temperature of cold fluid can never exceed this TH out, this temperature. Now we know, apply the heat energy balance on this element. The heat transferred by this hot fluid to this cold fluid must be equal. So we will take it del Q. Now this heat transfer is equal to del Q is equal to minus mH Cph dTh. dTh is the temperature difference of the fluid due to this heat transfer. This is differential temperature drop in the fluid due to heat transfer, and this is differential temperature gain in the cold fluid, which is dTc. So del Q is equal to, in this case, is equal to mc Cpc dTc. So these two equations are equal. That is, rate of heat loss from the hot fluid must at any section of a heat exchanger must be equal to the rate of heat gain by cold fluid. The temperature change of the hot fluid is negative. So you can see it is a negative quantity because it is dropping. So that is why we use negative sign here, because to make heat transfer as a positive quantity. Now from this equation find the dTh and dTc in terms of del Q you will get this equation. Take their difference of these two quantities, you will get this equation here. The rate of heat transfer and diffraction spectrum of heat exchanger can be also expressed as del Q is equal to U Th minus Tc into ds. For this small area, you can express heat exchanger heat transfer as U into Th minus hot temperature minus cold temperature into ds for this small element. Now replace this del Q value here. You will get this equation. Now integrate this equation. When you integrate this equation, you will get this Th out minus T cold out divided by Th in minus T cold in is equal to this. Now you have to replace this term and this term with this quantity, means take this denominator, take this on denominator and replace this term and this term in equation. Replace here and here. Also we know that heat transfer is equal to overall heat transfer coefficient, area of surface, and del T log mean 3 temperature difference. Now also replace this Q in this equation. You will get this equation here, where delta T1 is your temperature difference at inlet, T hot in, T cold in, and delta 2 is your temperature difference at outlet, T hot out, T cold outlet. So this is your log mean temperature difference, which is suitable for the average temperature difference for use in analysis of heat exchanger. Here delta T and delta 2 represent temperature difference between two fluids. At the ends of heat exchanger, it makes no difference which end of heat exchanger is designated as inlet or outlet. Means you can take any end as inlet or outlet. Means here you can say this delta 2 represent the temperature difference between the cold fluid outlet and hot fluid outlet temperature, and here delta T1 is the temperature difference of these two streams fluid. Now consider a second case where your heat exchanger is counter fluid exchanger. In this case your delta T1 is equal to this hot fluid in and cold fluid out, and delta T2 is equal to cold fluid in, hot fluid out. You can see here delta T1 here and delta T1 here. So whatever arrangement you will take, whether you will take parallel heat exchanger, whether you will take counter heat flow exchanger. So in this case delta Tm is independent of parallel or counter, because this is the difference of delta T1 and delta 2. So we will consider this logarithmic temperature irrespective of the direction of flow, whether counter or parallel. You can also see that temperature difference between two fluids at inlet decrease from delta T1 to outlet at delta T2. Also we can use arithmetic mean temperature, that is delta T arithmetic mean, which is equal to half of delta T1 and delta 2 to take an average. Means because we know this temperature difference at inlet is higher, outlet is lower, so we can take average of these two for the calculation purpose, which is this delta T average arithmetic mean. The logarithmic mean temperature difference is obtained by tracing the actual profile of the fluids along the heat exchanger and is an exact representation of average temperature difference between the hot and cold fluid. It truly reflects the exponential decay of the local temperature difference. Counter flow heat exchangers. The variation of temperature of hot and cold fluids in counter flow heat exchanger is given in figure this. This is variation in case of counter flow heat exchanger. This is cold fluid inlet, this is cold fluid outlet, this is hot fluid inlet, hot fluid outlet. Note that the hot and cold fluid enter the heat exchanger from opposite ends, and the outer temperature of cold fluid in this case may exceed the outer temperature of hot fluid. You can see this is the outer temperature of cold fluid, which is more than the outlet temperature of the hot fluid, but it never can go beyond this hot fluid inlet, which is a violation of second law of thermodynamics. The relation above for the logarithmic temperature difference is developed using in parallel flow heat exchanger, but we can show by repeating the analysis above for the counter flow heat exchanger that it is applicable to counter flow heat exchanger, but this time delta T1 and delta 2 are expressed as shown in figure. So you have to take this delta T1 and delta T2 for counter heat exchanger analysis, which is hot in minus cold out and cold in minus hot out. This is your delta T2. For specified inlet or outer temperature, the log mean temperature difference for a counter flow heat exchanger is always greater than that for a parallel flow heat exchanger. That is, delta T logarithm mean of counter flow is always greater than delta T logarithm mean of parallel flow. And therefore, if this difference is more for counter flow as compared to the parallel flow, thus a smaller surface area needed in case of counter flow heat exchanger as compared to parallel. Therefore, it is common practice to use counter flow heat exchanger arrangement as compared to parallel. In the counter flow heat exchanger, the temperature difference between the hot and cold fluid remains constant along the heat exchanger when the heat capacity rates of two fluids are equal. That is, delta T is equal to constant if cold fluid and hot fluid heat capacity is same. Then we have delta T1 is equal to delta T2. So delta T1 and delta T2 become equal when capacity of hot fluid and cold fluid is equal. You can also calculate from this here. If your capacity is same, so this difference will be same, means this difference at inlet and outlet is same. Multi-pass cross flow heat exchanger used for of a correction factor. The logarithmic temperature difference delta M relation developed earlier is limited to parallel flow counter flow heat exchanger only. Similar relations are also developed for cross flow and multi-pass shell and tube heat exchanger, but the resulting expressions are too complicated because of complex flow conditions. In such case, it is convenient to relate the equivalent temperature difference to the log mean temperature difference relation for the counter flow case. So delta LM in this case is equal to correction factor into logarithmic temperature difference of your counter flow heat exchanger. So we will, because in case of counter heat flow exchanger, this temperature is maximum, so we will take this as the reference and we will multiply by correction factor. It will give you the actual logarithmic temperature. The correction factor is less than unity for cross flow multi-pass shell and tube heat exchanger. That is, F is less than or equal to 1. The limiting value of F is equal to 1 correspond to counter flow heat exchanger. Thus, the correction factor F for a heat exchanger is a measure of deviation of delta LM from the corresponding value for the counter flow case. So this correction factor is given for the various value of P and for the various value of R. Now what is P here? P is the ratio of T2 minus T1 by T1 minus T2. So in this case, this is the ratio of inlet temperature to the outlet temperature difference of T2 minus T1 for the one stream of fluid tube side, and T1 which is inlet temperature of the fluid on shell side minus T1 which is inlet temperature of the fluid again on the tube side. So this is the ratio of P, which is called, so this is called temperature ratio. Now in second case, this is also temperature ratio. It is ratio of inlet temperature of the fluid on the shell side, outlet temperature of the fluid on the shell side to the inlet temperature and outlet temperature of the fluid on tube side. So this is your R. So correction factor for one shell pass and 2, 4, 6 etc. any multiple of 2 are given in this table here. Again, correction factor for 2 shell pass, this is 2 shell heat exchanger, and 4, 8 and 12 so on. This is given any multiple of 4. This is for any number of tubes. Multiple of 4 means 4, 8, 12 so on. So here parameter P, which is your, so this is your temperature ratio here. This R is also your temperature ratio. So values for correction factor corresponding to different R and corresponding to different P is given. So again, the temperature ratio for P and R and correction factor is given for the cross flow with both fluids unmixed, and this is for cross flow one fluid mixed and other unmixed is given in this case. P range from 0 to 1, this value will vary from 0 to 1. The value of R on the other hand range from 0 to infinity. So it can be infinity when tube side inlet and tube side outlet temperature same. It means your R is infinity, this factor is 0 and R will become infinity. So with the R is equal to 0 correspond to the phase change, condensation or boiling. R0 means your T1 and T2 are same, means there is no temp in the temperature of the fluid on the shell side because of condensation, only phase has changed, temperature remains constant. So in that case R is 0. A 2 shell pass, so this is a 2 shell pass and 4 tube heat exchanger used to heat glycerin from 20 degrees Celsius to 50 degree by hot water, which comes at 80 degrees Celsius and leaves at 40 degrees Celsius. The total length of tube in the heat exchanger is 60 meter. The convection heat transfer coefficient is 25 on the glycerin shell side. This outer side convection heat transfer is given, and 160 on the water side, inner side of the tube. Determine the rate of heat transfer in the heat exchanger before any fouling occurs. After fouling, with a fouling factor of 0.0006 meter square per degree Celsius per watt occurs. The tubes are set to be thin walled, and thus it is reasonable to assume the inner and outer surface area of tube equal. Then the heat transfer surface area becomes AS equal to pi dl, which is pi into diameter of the tube into length of tube, which is 60 meter. It is 3.7 meter square. The rate of heat transfer in this heat exchanger can be determined from, so heat transfer is equal to U AS F into del T logarithm mean temperature of your counter flow heat exchanger. Now in this case, so delta T1, we know delta T1 is equal to T hot in minus T cold out. For calculation of delta T, you can reference to the figure. You can refer this figure. Here this difference is your delta T1 and this difference is your delta T2. Now logarithm temperature is equal to delta T1 minus delta T2 by log delta T1 by delta 2, which is 24.7 degrees Celsius. Now we have to find the correction factor. This is your value of temperature ratio P, and this is value of temperature ratio, which is R. Now we know temperature T2, T1 and T1. You can find value of P and R, which in this case is 0.67 and 0.75, and correspond to these two values the value of correction factor. So P is 0.67, which is here somewhere, and your R is in this case is 0.75, which is here somewhere here. So your correction factor is equal to 0.91. Now in case of no fouling, the overall heat transfer coefficient is equal to 1 by Hi plus 1 by H naught. Inner and outer coefficient are given. So overall heat transfer is 21.6 watt per meter square degree Celsius. We know heat transfer, that is U AS F into delta T logarithm mean temperature for counter flow, which in this case is 18304 watt. Now if there is a fouling, you have to add the fouling resistance in this case. In that case your heat transfer is this, and your overall heat transfer is this. The effectiveness NTU method, that is number of transfer units. The log mean temperature difference LMTD method discussed above is easy to use. Heat exchanger analysis: when the inlet and outlet temperature of the hot and cold fluids are known or can be determined from energy balance. Once delta T logarithm mean temperature, the mass flow rate and overall heat transfer coefficient are available, means Q, U and delta TLM is available, you can find the area of each heat exchanger. Once you know the area of heat exchanger, you can design or you can find the suitable heat exchanger for your application. Therefore, LMTD method is very suitable for determining the size of heat exchanger to realize prescribed outlet temperatures when the mass flow rate and the inlet and outlet temperature of hot and cold fluids are specified. With the LMTD method, the task is to select a heat exchanger that will meet the prescribed heat transfer requirements. The procedure to be followed in this process is: select the type of heat exchanger suitable for the application. Determine any unknown inlet or outlet temperature and heat transfer rate using energy balance. Calculate the log mean temperature difference delta T log M and correction factor F if necessary. Obtain the value of overall heat transfer coefficient U. Calculate the heat transfer area AS. So the task is completed by selecting a heat exchanger that has a heat transfer surface area equal to or greater than AS. A second kind of problem encountered in heat exchanger analysis is the determination of heat transfer rate and the outlet temperature of hot and cold fluids for prescribed fluid mass flow rates and inlet temperature, where the type and the size of heat exchanger are specified. So the heat transfer surface area A of the heat exchanger in this case is known, but the outlet temperature are not. Here the task is to determine the heat transfer performance of a specific heat exchanger, or to determine if a heat exchanger available in storage will do the job. The LMTD method could still be used for this alternative problem, but the procedure would require tedious iteration. So we will simplify this by using effectiveness NTU method, which greatly simplifies heat exchanger analysis. The method is based on dimensionless parameter called heat transfer effectiveness E, which is ratio of heat transfer, actual heat transfer, to the maximum possible heat transfer rate. The actual heat transfer rate in heat exchanger can be determined from energy balance on hot and cold fluids, that is energy gained by, you can say, cold fluid is equal to heat loss by the hot fluid. To find the maximum possible heat transfer rate in heat exchanger, we first recognize that the maximum temperature difference in a heat exchanger is the difference between inlet temperature of the hot and cold fluid, that is delta T maximum is equal to T hot in minus T cold in. The heat transfer in a heat exchanger will reach its maximum value when the cold fluid is heated to the inlet temperature of the hot fluid is cooled to the inlet temperature of cold fluid. These two limit conditions will not be reached simultaneously unless the heat capacity rate of hot and cold fluids are identical. Therefore, the maximum possible heat transfer rate in heat exchanger is equal to Q maximum C minimum, that is specified minimum fluid, into T hot in minus T cold in. Now we had taken C minimum. Now this is further clarified in the following example. Why we had taken C minimum here? Upper limit for heat transfer in heat exchanger. Cold water enter the counter flow heat exchanger at 10 degrees Celsius at a rate of 8 kg per second, where it is heated by hot water, which is at 70 degrees Celsius, and 2 kg per second is the mass rate of the hot water. Assuming the specific of water is equal to 4.18, determine the maximum heat transfer rate and the outer temperature of the cold and hot water stream for the limiting case. The schematic of the heat exchanger is given in this figure. The heat capacity rate of hot and cold fluids are determined. So this is your heat capacity, which is mass rate of hot fluid into specific heat for hot fluid, which is your 8.3 kilowatt per degree Celsius, and for Cc means heat capacity for the cold fluid is equal to this, is equal to 34.4 kilowatt per degree Celsius. So minimum in this case is this value. So we will take minimum heat capacity, which is Ch is equal to 8.36 kilowatt degree Celsius. For this we will take, which is the smaller of the two heat capacity rates, the maximum heat transfer rate is determined is equal to C minimum into T hot in minus T cold in. Now in this case, hot inlet is 70, cold inlet is 10, which is 502 kilowatt. That is the maximum possible heat transfer rate in heat exchanger is 502 kilowatt. This value would be approached in a counter flow heat exchanger with a very large heat transfer surface area. The maximum temperature difference is this heat exchanger is delta maximum is equal to 60. Therefore, hot water cannot be cooled by more than 60 degree in this heat exchanger, means to 10 degree, beyond we can't go, and the cold water cannot be heated more than by 60 degree, means the maximum temperature of cold water which we can achieve is 70 degree. No matter what we do, the outlet temperature of the cold and hot stream in this limited case are determined to be. So this is heat transfer is equal to this. From here you can find T cold outlet which is unknown, which is 25 degrees Celsius here, and here we can find H hot outlet, which is the hot temperature outlet, which is here is 10 degrees Celsius. Note that hot water is cooled to a limit of 10 degree, the inlet temperature of the cold water stream, but the cold water is heated to 25 degree only when the maximum heat transfer rate occurs in heat exchanger. So this is not surprising since the mass rate of hot water is only 1/4 that of cold water. You can see mass rate of cold water is 8 while hot water is 2. So that is why it is so. So this is not surprising since the mass flow rate of the hot water is only 1/4 that of the cold water, and as a result the temperature of cold water increased by 0.25 degrees Celsius for 1 degree drop in the temperature of hot water. You may be tempted to think that the cold water should be heated to 70 degrees Celsius in the limiting case of maximum heat transfer, but this will require the temperature of hot water to drop by minus 170 degrees Celsius below 10 degrees Celsius. That we can understand with the help of this example. Take say hot water outer temperature is minus 170. Here this is 70, and in that case your heat transfer will become 4 times. Means instead of 502 kilowatt, to balance this equation you have to actually use it, make it 4 times. Now in that case when your heat transfer is 4 times, it means here it will become 4 times. So means this value become 60, and 60 plus 10 it will become 70. So means this T hot out must be minus 170 to make this T cold out 70 degrees Celsius. Now which is definitely impossible. We can't make hot temperature to be minus 70 degrees Celsius below 10 degrees Celsius. Therefore heat transfer in the heat exchanger reaches its maximum value when the fluid with the smaller heat capacity rate or smaller mass rate, when both the fluids have same specific heat value. Experience the maximum temperature change. This example explains why we use C minimum in evaluation of Q maximum instead of C maximum. You can also see we had taken Q maximum and we had taken on the basis of the hot temperature, fluid temperature, which is 70 minus 10. You can also see here the hot outlet is 10 degrees Celsius, which is well equivalent to our assumption, which is that hot temperature fluid should be decreased to the temperature of cold steam inlet. Means the maximum heat transfer is when your hot temperature fluid outlet will be equal to this cold water stream inlet temperature, which is 10 degrees Celsius here. So by assuming this, we had got this relation, which is true. But if we counteract this, we will select this value, which is impossible and which does not exist in actual case. So our assumption is correct for this, that is C minimum is correct. So determination of Q maximum requires the availability of the inlet temperature for hot and cold fluids and their mass flow rates, which are usually specified. Then once the effectiveness heat exchange is known, the actual heat transfer Q can be determined from this relation. Q is equal to effectiveness into Q maximum, effectiveness into C minimum into TH in minus T in. Therefore, effectiveness of heat exchanger enable us to determine the heat transfer rate without knowing the outlet temperature of the fluid. Means without knowing the outlet temperature of fluid, you can find the heat transfer. The effectiveness of a heat exchanger depends on the geometry of heat exchanger as well as fluid arrangement. Therefore, different types of heat exchangers have different effectiveness relations. Below we illustrate the development of effectiveness E relation for the double pipe parallel flow heat exchanger. Now this is the equation. Instead of this mass rate and specific heat, you can replace with the heat capacity rate, which is Cp and Cc. Also solve TH out from one equation, which is this equation. From this equation, you can calculate the value of TH in by rearranging this. So take this CH on this side and take this parameter this side. You will get some correlation between this and this, which is this relation. Now put the value of TH hot fluid out in this equation here and add and subtract this term, that is T cold in and T cold in. Add twice, one subtraction, one plus. You will get this equation. Now you get it clearly visible. This upon this become 1 and this upon this and this upon this becomes here. So this 1 plus Cc upon Ch is common in this and this. Now rearrange this, take the exponential on this side. Now we know effectiveness is equal to Q by Q maximum and Q is this heat transfer of a fluid, which is Cc. Tc out minus Tc in. This is heat transfer, actual heat transfer, and the maximum heat transfer is C minimum, Th in minus T cold in, that we had already discussed. Now if you equate this equation and this equation, you will get this equation. Now replace this term, which is here, with this value. So put here and you will get, on rearranging, you will get this equation, that effectiveness parallel flow, which is this, on rearranging. Now in this case, C minimum. Now what should be C minimum? You can taking either Cc or Ch to be minimum. Both approach give same result. The relation above can be expressed more evidently by this. If you put the value of C minimum, either Cc or Ch, you will get this relation here. So you can replace cold or hot with minimum or maximum. You can replace any with minimum or maximum. The equation will same. So this is your equation. Again, C minimum is smaller heat capacity rate and C maximum is the larger one, and it makes no difference whether C minimum belongs to hot or cold fluid. Now you can see this is effectiveness relations of heat exchanger. Typically involves the dimensionless group, this, and this quantity is called number of transfer units. So NTU is equal to UAS by C minimum or UAS by MCP minimum. This is your number of transfer unit. Now you can see NTU is proportional to U, AS and C minimum. Suppose C minimum is fixed, overall heat transfer coefficient is fixed. So NTU is representation of area, or it is proportional to area. Therefore, for a specified value of U and C minimum, the value of NTU is a measure of heat transfer surface area AS. Thus, larger the NTU, the larger the heat exchanger. Now in heat exchanger analysis, it is also convenient to define another dimensionless quantity called capacity ratio C, as C is equal to C minimum C maximum. So this you can represent by C. So rearranging, your factor is a function of UAS, C minimum to C maximum, or it is a function of number of transfer unit, which is this, and this capacity ratio. So effective relation for heat exchanger, NTU and this is C are given here. This is double pipe parallel flow. This is effectiveness relation. For counter flow, this is the effectiveness relation. And for shell and tube 1 and 2, this is the effectiveness ratio. And for cross flow, this is effectiveness ratio. So for different arrangements, the effectiveness is given. Now this graph is between effectiveness and NTU for different value of C, this ratio for parallel flow, and this is for counter flow. This is for effectiveness and this ratio C, and number of transfer units for different values C. It is for 1 shell pass and 2, 4, 6 tubes passes, and the same here different graphs are given. This is for cross flow with both fluid unmixed. This is cross flow with fluid mixed and one other unmixed. Here you can see two lines, dashed line, and you can see solid line. Now extensive effectiveness charts or relations are given. The dashed line in figure are for the case of C minimum. So this dashed line for corresponding to the C minimum case. Unmixed means dashed lines your minimum heat capacity fluid will unmixed, and C maximum mixed. So in this year C maximum is mixed, while the solid lines are opposite case. The value of effectiveness range from 0 to 1. You can see it will range from 0 to 1. It increases rapidly with NTU for small values up to about NTU 1.5, but rather slowly for large values. You can see in all cases when NTU is 1 to 5, the effectiveness increases very rapidly, and after beyond that the increase in effectiveness is marginal. In all the cases you can see at 1.5 it is increasing at very faster rate, but beyond that it increases very slow. So this means that therefore the use of heat exchanger with a large NTU, usually larger than 3, and thus a large size cannot be justified economically, since a large increase in NTU in this case corresponds to small increase in effectiveness. Thus a heat exchanger with a very high effectiveness may be highly desirable from heat transfer point of view, but rather undesirable from an economical point of view. Also for a specified NTU and heat capacity ratio C, which is 1, if you compare the parallel flow, cross flow with both fluid unmixed and counter fluid exchanger, counter fluid heat exchanger will give you the maximum effectiveness. It means it's the most preferable choice, and parallel flow is the least preferable choice for heat exchanger. The effectiveness of heat exchanger is independent of the capacity ratio C for NTU values of less than 0.3. You can see below 0.3 NTU value, the effectiveness is independent of capacity ratio. In all the case it is same irrespective of the capacity ratio. Also in this case below 0.3 NTU, you can see it is same irrespective of capacity ratio. Effectiveness is same in all the cases. The value of capacity ratio C ranges between 0 and 1. For a given NTU, the effectiveness becomes maximum when C is equal to 0 and minimum when C is equal to 1. Now you can see the effectiveness relation reduces to this value for all heat exchanger when capacity ratio C is equal to 0. Means if you put C is equal to 0 into this equation here, if you put C is equal to 0 in all the cases, you will get this relation. So you will get this curve when your C is 0, and it is the maximum effectiveness, and minimum when C is equal to 1. In the case C minimum plus C maximum tends to 0 correspond to C maximum tends to infinity, which is realized during the phase change process in a condenser or boiler. All effectiveness ratio in this case reduced to this. So if you know these quantities, if you know NTU, you can evaluate effectiveness of heat exchanger. Now if you know effectiveness, you can find heat transfer, and you can find temperature out and temperature cold out from the equations. This equation will give you the heat transfer. Now this, if you know this heat transfer, you can also know this relation also. From this relation you can find T out temperature and T cold out temperature. Outer temperature you can calculate. Now these parameters are given. Hot fluid temperature, inlet 160, hot fluid out is 20. Mass rate of cold fluid, mass rate of cold fluid is 1.2 and temperature of is 20, and mass rate of cold fluid at the outlet is 80. So you have to solve this question with the help of NTU method. First we will find the heat capacities, which is product of mass fluid and specific heat, which is in case of hot fluid it is this, and in case of cold fluid it is this. Now in this case C minimum is this, so we will take C minimum is equal to this, and we know C minimum upon maximum is equal to your heat capacity ratio, which is 0.583. Now we maximum heat transfer is equal to C minimum into T hot in minus T cold in. That is by definition we can find the maximum heat transfer depends on this C minimum, which is here 702.8 kilowatt. Now you can find the actual rate of heat transfer in the heat exchanger is Q is equal to mCp T out minus T in water. So this out water is 80, this inlet is 20. So you can find actual heat transfer, which is definitely less than the maximum possible heat transfer rate. Now what is effectiveness? That is Q, actual heat transfer rate, by maximum heat transfer rate, which is 0.428. Now we know effectiveness and we had this C. We can find NTU. So for counter flow heat exchanger, this is your NTU. Put effectiveness and C, you will get NTU. The NTU is equal to 0.651. Now we know the number of transfer unit, which is UA S upon C minimum, and we can calculate area of heat transfer, or you can say calculate the area of surface, that is NTU C minimum by U from this equation, which is 5.11 meter square. And on the basis of this area you can find the length of the pipe. We have to find this length of pipe. Diameter is given, so if you put diameter here you will get length of pipe, which is 108 meter here. Note that we obtained the same result with the effectiveness NTU method in a systematic and straightforward manner.